Hello, today we're going to talk about functions in CoffeeScript, and we're also going to review the while loop, and then we're going to expand our notion of what functions can do. So let's start off with this program and analyze what it should do. So it's a 15-line program where some of the lines in the program are blank lines, and other lines are comments, which are essentially ignored by CoffeeScript. So the statements that actually executed are on lines 2, 5, 6, 9, 11, 14, and 15. And the first statement that CoffeeScript executes is to assign the variable square with the value of this expression, which is actually a function. So this function says I have a mapping of a parameter n to an expression which is n times n, which, as we know from arithmetic, is basically the definition of a square. So for example, the square of 5 is 25. And then we have a loop, and so we're going to start by assigning the value of 1 to the variable I, and then we're going to say as long as the value of I is less than or equal to 3, we're going to execute this inner block of statements that goes from line, let me highlight it more carefully, goes from line 7 to 11. Now the first two statements in the block are just comments. The first comment is saying that the 4 lines that follow it are basically comprise the inner block of the while statement. And then we say what we're about to do, which is we're going to print the square of I. And then line number 10 again is a comment meant for the human to say that we're about to increment I. And then line 11 is a statement to CoffeeScript to say, hey, we want you to assign I plus 1 to, I didn't get that quite right, I plus 1, we want to assign that to be the new value of the variable I. And then finally, after incrementing I a couple times through the loop, this statement, this expression here, I is less than or equal to 3, will no longer be true. This will, to be more precise, once I takes on the value of 4, this expression will no longer be true. We will exit the loop, which means we will stop repeating this block of statements. We will no longer execute this block of statements. And then once we're outside the loop, this statement number 13 is ignored by the computer. Statement number 14 gets executed by the computer, and statement number 15 gets executed by the statement. So that's a pretty long explanation. Now might be a good time to pause the video and try to predict in your own mind what this program would output. Go ahead and pause it now, and okay, if you're back, or if you haven't paused it, you can see that the output is the first 3 squares, the first 3 integers squared. So the square of 1 is 1, the square of 2 is 4, the square of 3 is 9, and then when it exited the loop, it continued on with the remaining statements in the program, which just print these 2 strings of text: I am done and goodbye. Okay, so that's all a review of things that have been covered in prior screencasts, which I hope you've had the chance to see. And now we're going to get into a new concept of multi-line functions. So the first thing I'm going to recognize is that this statement where I define a square function is kind of hard to read all in one line. So CoffeeScript actually supports a syntax where you can indent the expression on the next line. And then this you can think of as still being one big statement, but I've broken it up into 2 different lines. So the first thing I'm going to do is validate that that does indeed work, and when I run the program I see that I get the same output as I did the first time I ran it. So I haven't changed the program in a functional way, I've only changed it in a cosmetic way in how the program appears to the human. The other thing that I can do is I can explicitly say that this is the value that I'm returning. And for now it just seems like wasted typing, but in the future we'll see this return statement. So I'm introducing this concept only to start to get you familiar with it, but we're not really going to elaborate on it too much. But here's the interesting thing, is that a function can actually do multiple things within it. So what we're going to do now is we're going to, instead of just returning the final value, we're also going to log the value of n that comes into us. So this is going to change the output of the program. I'm going to get rid of these last 2 statements because I think you get the idea of what's happening there. And now I'm going to run this program, and we're going to see that every time we enter the function that this statement 3 is also going to execute. And I can make this a little more clear. So I'm going to say console.log entering, and I'm going to put these dashes as part of it to make it even easier to read the output, hopefully. So when I run this, you can see that the first time I enter the function, the value of n that came into me was 1, and then when I computed the square, it's actually line 12 that executes this console.log statement to output that value. And then you can see the second time through the loop, inside the function, we see that we're entering the function, we log n, and then this value gets returned to line 12, and line 12 outputs the square of 2, which is 4, and then likewise for the third thing. So that's all I'm going to cover today. This is a concept that you probably want to sink in. Again, it might be good to pause the video, but essentially what we've shown is that when you define a function, you are allowed to give a block of statements that assist you in either the calculation of the function or that allow you to put more debugging inside the function so that you can see what's going on. And we'll reinforce this concept in future screencasts. Thanks.